In the heart of Paris, nestled in a narrow cobblestone alley, stood a quaint little wine shop named Le Vin Cache. It was famous among wine enthusiasts for its rare and exquisite collection. The owner, Monsieur Laurent, was a sommelier with an impeccable reputation. He was a man of few words, with a sharp eye and a deep passion for wine. But behind his calm demeanor lay a secret one that would soon unravel in the most unexpected way. One chilly evening, a well-dressed gentleman entered the shop. He introduced himself as Inspector Moreau, a detective from the Paris police. He had come to investigate the sudden death of a wealthy wine collector, Monsieur Dupont, who had been found dead in his mansion the previous night. The cause of death was unclear, but a half-empty bottle of wine from Le Vin Cache was found on the table beside him. Inspector Moreau questioned Monsieur Laurent about the bottle. Laurent, though visibly shaken, insisted that the wine was perfectly safe. He explained that Monsieur Dupont was a regular customer and had purchased the bottle just 2 days ago. The inspector, however, was not convinced. He noticed a faint tremor in Laurent's hands and a flicker of unease in his eyes. The next day, the inspector returned to the shop, this time with a forensic expert. They examined the remaining bottles of the same vintage and discovered something alarming, a tiny puncture mark on the cork of one of the bottles. When tested, the wine inside was found to contain a lethal dose of poison. Laurent was arrested on suspicion of murder, but the mystery deepened when another customer, a young woman named Claire, came forward with a strange story. She claimed that she had visited the shop a week ago and overheard a heated argument between Laurent and a mysterious man. The man had threatened Laurent, saying, "If you don't hand it over, you'll regret it." Claire couldn't see the man's face, but she remembered his voice deep and menacing. Inspector Moreau began to dig deeper into Lorraine's past. He discovered that before opening Le Vin Cache, Laurent had worked as a sommelier for a wealthy family in Bordeaux. The family had been involved in a scandal years ago, and their estate had been sold off to pay their debts. Laurent had disappeared shortly after, only to resurface in Paris years later. The inspector's investigation led him to an old vineyard in Bordeaux, where he uncovered a shocking truth. The vineyard had once produced a legendary wine known as the Devil's Elixir. It was said to be worth a fortune, but the recipe had been lost decades ago. Laurent, it seemed, had stumbled upon the recipe during his time working for the family. The mysterious man who had threatened him was a collector who would stop at nothing to get his hands on it. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Inspector Moreau realized that Laurent had been trying to protect the secret of the Devil's Elixir. The poisoned bottle found in Dupont's mansion was a warning, a message to anyone who dared to seek the recipe. But who had poisoned the wine? And why had Dupont been targeted? The inspector returned to Paris and confronted Laurent in his cell. After hours of questioning, Laurent finally broke down. He confessed that he had indeed discovered the recipe, but he had never intended to use it. The mysterious man, a rival collector, had been blackmailing him, demanding the recipe in exchange for his silence. Laurent had refused, and in a desperate attempt to protect himself, he had poisoned one of the bottles as a deterrent. Unfortunately, Dupont had been the one to purchase it. In the end, Laurent was charged with manslaughter, but the inspector couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the sommelier. He had been a man caught in a web of greed and betrayal, trying to protect a secret that was never truly his to keep. As for the Devil's Elixir, its recipe remained a mystery, buried once again in the shadows of the past. And Le Vin Cache, it closed its doors for good, leaving behind only whispers of the sommelier's secret.